Simple English, like you could say.
Yes, and we know that now more than ever, kids need real resources to go to because we don't know what they're going to learn in schools. So we need books like this to explain to them Trump's presidency because we know it's going to get skewed by the people who control education. So it's a great book.
Yeah, and of course, former Governor Mike Huckabee has introduced this book, and he wants you to have it. It's absolutely free. Just simply go to the website, freetrumpbook.com. That's freetrumpbook.com and check it out. And don't forget to put that promo code RSBN at checkout. The information should be on your screen. And you know what? That is just one fun way to give it to someone graduating from, middle school, high school even, or maybe just have some fun. It's a great coffee table book as well. So go check it out at freetrumpbook.com. You just pay a slight shipping and handling fee. I've seen this book. It's excellent. We're going to actually have it on the table here shortly, and we'll be able to show it to you. But so check it out at freetrumpbook.com. Full slate of interviews we have today. Of course, inside we have some great roundtables. We'll dip back into there as well. But one of the things that's been really resonating, Grace, as I talk to people walking by, is censorship and how they are tired of the press just really clamping down on what you and I can say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're under attack right now in censorship. At all the platforms, the major ones, Facebook, Google, YouTube, we really need these other alternative platforms to provide us with a way to use our freedom of speech. We have freedom of speech in this country, but we have to use our capitalism to create other products that allow us to remain free.
And Rumble's been one of those great products, and we're going to have hopefully somebody from Rumble come by. We've got some T-shirts and some hats over here. So if you're at CPAC and you're walking around, make sure you come by our booth and pick up some of this merch that we have from Rumble, because Rumble is such a great company, and we talked about this before. When we got kicked off one platform, we were easily going into another one, which made it nice and easy to continue doing what we do, which
They've
is
always
just
been there for us.
Which is just tell the truth, basically. Just tell the truth.
Yeah.
All right, another big partner that we have for all of this is our friends over at the Birch Gold Group. Now, we've talked about the economy, we've talked about our 401k, and we've talked about how our investments have been going down, and I'm sorry, and how we're just printing money, and how Joe Biden really has no plan on how to save America's economy. Then I think it is important for you to diversify in gold, and that's why our friends over at the Birch Gold Group want to get this free information kit sent to you. Now, this is absolutely free, Grace. You don't have to spend any money on it to get this information kit. They're going to send it to you. Just text the words RSBN to 989898. That's RSBN to 989898. Now, I saw the deficit that we have, Grace, and I think it was in like each person, in order to pay off the deficit, had to pay something like $134,000, like stroke a check to get us out of the deficit. And you and I both know that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, and they're adding tons to the national debt every single day. We're not going to get out of it anytime soon, so it's very good to be prepared.
Yeah, it is very good to be prepared. The information is on your screen. They got a special as well. You can see up there $10,000 worth basically with qualifying purchases. Go check it out. Our friends over at the Birch Gold Group. Just text the words. This is really easy to remember now. RSBN to 989898, the Birch Gold Group. Great partner for today's broadcast, and they've been a really great partner throughout all of our Trump rallies. So when it comes to saving your 401k, you don't want it to be a 201k. I know that's an old joke, but it seems like it's almost fitting now. Go check out our friends over at the Birch Gold Group. All right, we're going to dip back in the program here shortly. Let's get a quick check of the time. It's 11:17. So in about 3 minutes, we're going to go back inside. The energy here is really unlike any event that we go to. You can feel it. People are excited. People are here. They're exchanging ideas. They're talking. Of course, on Media Row, you can hear the crowd behind us. People are fired up, but they're fired up about America. They want to save America.
They want to fire Nancy Pelosi, and they want to save America. They have a very specific goal here. And people, like you said, they are excited. They're cheering. They're walking by. They're saying, thank you so much for everything you guys do. So, CPAC is the place to be. If you are interested in politics, you guys should really consider coming and stopping by our booth and meeting all of our talent, learning more about what we offer.
We'd love to learn about what you do. And I think one of the important things to take away here is that we have control of the House. We need to take control of the Senate in the presidency in 2024. If we can do all of that, I think we could turn this country around, because we'll finally get a leader in the office that will implement his agenda and get support. Because we all kind of know what happened the first 2 years when President Trump was in office. He had so many rhinos that were blocking him. I think if anything came out of what was happening the last 4 years is we now know who is for America and who is not for America.
I think people are motivated now. I think they saw what happened in 2020. They want to, take back our country. They want Congress to do something about all the problems that we're seeing right now, such as censorship, rising crime, inflation. And they see the establishment just kicking back and just enjoying their power and their money.
And I think they want accountability. The American people want accountability in all of this. So make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. You can follow me at Brian Glenn TV on Twitter, at Brian on Truth Social, and on Instagram and Facebook as well. And how about you, Grace?
You can find me at Grace Saldana on all of the platforms except Truth Social, just at Grace.
There you go. We're going to toss our coverage inside once again as we are live at CPAC 2023. We'll get a few more minutes out here, and we'll give an idea of some of the people we have coming up. Tomorrow, we've got Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congresswoman out of the 14th District of Georgia.
Yes. We have some others.
She is a firecracker, and she's going to be talking about some of the things. One of the things I know that she's going to probably want to discuss is this national divorce that she brought up last week. And what that was a statement saying that the American people are fed up with our federal government, and that the government no longer really represents the people. And you can say, well, Brian, that's not true, because there's a lot of people right now that love what's going on in our country right now, and that might be true, but overwhelmingly the people do not like the direction of this country. So her idea of a national divorce was to basically push the rights back down to the states.
Yes, and it's a very controversial idea. She's been getting a lot of media questions about it, and but she's also been doing a lot of explaining about exactly what a national divorce means. Is it a civil war? Is it something else? Is it simply just a splitting of the red and the blue states with no conflict? Like, what is this national divorce? So that would be a great topic.
It is, and I'm glad you said that, because I think she'll explain that her approach to this is to avoid a civil war. It's kind of interesting. We talked to thousands of, rally Americans, patriotic Americans around the country, and they go, we don't like the direction that we're going right now, and I don't know how it ends. And a lot of people say, does it end in some type of civil war? I think so. I think what she wants is to come up with some kind of way to avoid that, but we'll talk to her tomorrow about that. Plus, Laura Trump coming on the show, I think later today around 1:30, 2 o'clock. Obviously, she's got a great show on our network, and we're just happy to have her. And she's a great inspiration to a lot of people that want to know exactly how they can fight on an everyday basis on issues. And she's a mom, and she kind of juggles both careers.
She's very down to earth, too. She's great to talk to.
It's great to talk to. So we'll have her here. Who else do we have coming up? Do you remember?
Yeah, we'll have Congressman Keith Sell from Texas.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
From your district.
She's actually my my congresswoman. Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah. And this is, I'm going to say, it's his first year in.
Yes, it is. He's a freshman.
Freshman.
He wants to talk about the border, so we will be discussing all of that. What's going on at the border, Brian?
The border is so huge, Grace. I mean, I remember covering the border just, a couple years ago, and we knew how bad it was, but we didn't know how much it would really infiltrate every state in this country. So no matter where you live right now, chances are the border is coming to your hometown in regards to and increase illegals in your community, which we are all for immigration. That's what our country is founded on, immigration. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about fentanyl and really some bad people coming to this country.
America last.
Yeah.
I just saw a story that came out of Chicago. There's homeless shelters, and they will only accept illegal immigrants, and they're accepting them over American homeless people. And
I've not heard that.
The reason was they tried to explain why, and they said that the Chicago mayor had not given approval to accept anyone else besides the illegal immigrants, which we know what just happened with her. Lori Lightfoot just lost re-election. I think she was the first mayor in 40 years to lose re-election. So
I think we're going to have somebody on later today that is a consultant for the city of Chicago. I think there's some type of correlation there, so we'll learn exactly.
We'll talk about that.
Why voters turned away because Americans are fed up with the lies. They're fed up with the government not doing stuff, and they're fed up with law enforcement being handcuffed in a certain degree and not fighting crime. Because when it comes down to it, Americans want to feel like they're safe, Grace, and that your safety is number one, and then everything else kind of falls underneath it.
Right, and you would think that the government would have your best interest in mind, especially the federal government, but they don't. In fact, I think our national security is just really down the tubes right now.
Yeah.
We have Chinese spy balloons. We have a flood coming in through the border of illegal immigrants from all over the world.
It's interesting on the Chinese spy balloon because I was in North Idaho right when the third balloon came floating by, and we had a lot of people that I spoke to said, "Hey, wait a minute! I saw that balloon fly over." And we learned so much about it later on that it was not man, it was not powered by man. It was just kind of drifting in the trade winds. But people feel like our country is under attack, not only within, but when you have Chinese spy balloons just floating by,
right? And
we have the southern border just wide open, we are under attack to a certain degree.
Right, and the Biden administration knew. We need to wrap up. We have to toss back inside.
All right. We're going to toss back inside. We are live out here, CPAC 2023 from the beautiful Gaylord. We'll take it back inside.
Everyone is talking about news.
All right. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah. Lamont Sherry. Yes, I've heard some about the Convention of States. And it's basically the states getting together. Do you have any more information on that? I know it's not necessarily seceding, I don't believe, but it would be more of patriotic states, if you will, getting together to uphold the Constitution. And there might be a better way to put that. Okay. Conventionofstates.com. A national effort to call a convention under the Article 5 of the United States Constitution restricted to proposing amendments that will impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit its power and jurisdiction, and impose term limits on its officials and members of Congress. For sure, I think there definitely should be term limits. I was just talking about this with some people at the gym yesterday, and I think that's a common theme of discussion is having term limits for federal employees. And I do think that would be a very good thing. Thank you for bringing that up, Shuri.
Ladies and gentlemen, no Dominus Vobiscum FBI. Please welcome, from Florida, Congresswoman Kat Cammack. From Wyoming, Congresswoman Harriet Hagman. And your host, Town Hall editor and Fox News contributor, Katie Pavlich.
What a great crowd on the first day to kick off CPAC 2023. This is my 13th or 14th CPAC, if you can imagine.
Don't tell anybody.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. So grateful to be back. Thank you for hosting us. I'm so grateful today to be joined by these stellar congresswomen, of course, Congresswoman Kat Cammack from the great state of Florida. And the woman who made Liz Cheney a former congresswoman, Congresswoman Harriet.
Yeah.
So I got started in politics and media back when the IRS was targeting conservatives through the Tea Party movement in 2010. Fast forward to today, and we're facing the weaponization of government on steroids compared to that. So you both serve on the new subcommittee, House subcommittee for the weaponization on government. And I just want to start with, this is a big topic, lots of different areas the government is targeting its citizens, but I just want to get an overview from both of you about where you think we are with this issue and why you think that this select subcommittee was necessary. We'll start with you, Congressman Kamek.
When you look at what has happened, even just in the last few years, I mean, you could go back decades, but you look at what's happened in the last couple of years, you have the DOJ, the Department of Justice, calling parents that are concerned about what their kids are being taught, they're labeling them terrorists. You have an FBI that is now taking orders in the field offices from the central office, not based on facts, not based on investigation, but actually taking political marching orders. We are seeing it through the IRS, we're seeing it through the USDA. Every federal agency today is both literally being weaponized through the collection and housing of ammunition and ballistic materials, but also turning that counterterrorism effort that has been happening for years, they're turning it inward on Americans. It's wrong, it has to stop, because this is our government, not their government.
That's right. Sunshine is the best disinfectant, and the reality is that these agencies believe that they're now in charge. Yeah. It's something that I've been talking about for well over 20 years, that we're losing our constitutional foundation. We are a republic. We are a representative form of government. Kat and I, as congresswomen, are answerable to our constituents. We're answerable to the citizens of this country. This country is of, by, and for the people. And what has happened is that since the late 1930s, but especially since the Clinton administration, we have weaponized the federal government against the citizens of this country. We've stockpiled more and more power in Washington, D.C., and we've laundered more and more money through Washington, D.C., and it has now become probably the biggest business, really, in the United States is the federal government. And these agencies have decided that they're going to pick winners and losers. And right now, the conservatives and Republicans and parents are the targets of these folks, and we need to ferret it out. We need to expose it. We need to be passing laws to stop it, and we need to make sure that this nonsense never happens again.
So during the first subcommittee hearing that you held, you're going to have a number of them, you focused heavily on the First Amendment, the FBI, and the Department of Justice. People in this room are well informed. They have a good idea of what the FBI has been up to, but tell us a little bit about what you've seen behind the scenes about what the FBI is doing and the abuse of power that maybe people aren't quite aware of. Congressman Hagerman.
Well, we really did focus on the First Amendment because that's one of the ways in which we can hold our government accountable, and it's the way in which we expose what they've been doing. So what I focused on is that the FBI and the Department of Justice have been violating our First Amendment rights through surrogacy. So we've found out through the Twitter files that they have been contacting Twitter and these social media companies and demanding that they pull down posts or that they ban certain people from being able to say things. Well, clearly under the First Amendment, neither of these agencies would be able to do that directly, so they're doing it through a third party. It's just as illegal, and that's why I asked Professor Turley about that during the course of the first hearing, is that illegal? And it absolutely is. And again, we need to hold not just these agencies accountable, but we need to hold the individuals accountable, because it's the agencies as well as the federal employees who are doing it. We need to start naming names. And we need to hold them accountable either by losing their jobs or suing them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's always interesting to me in these hearings, and having been through quite a few of them collectively over the last couple of years, I think you find that you go into these with a game plan of what you want to talk about, but then there's always a witness that is presented from the other side. And in this case, in our very first hearing, it was it was unbelievable to me, the commentary that was coming from the Democrat witness. He kept saying, you get more with honey than vinegar. But then, as I'm sitting there with my game plan, I'm flipping through this guy's Twitter feed, and it is incredibly vitriolic. And he had, I think, 17 tweets up until that point. I'm sitting there at the dais counting how many bad things he said, all the horrible things he said about Justice Kavanaugh. And he's trying to present this, friendly fellow persona. And so when you go in with a game plan, sometimes you have to toss it out the window depending on what's being said. And that's the beauty of these hearings. And so I asked him, all of these times that you said that the FBI didn't do a good job vetting him, all the times that you criticized him, even go so far as to encourage people to harass this Supreme Court justice, was that honey or was that vinegar?
Nice. I noticed he didn't give you a straight answer on that one. He wanted to explain the context of his.
Yeah. Well, and then he kind of shuts down. He gets a little combative, and that's when you know you've got him because you've hit the nerve. And Harriet is a remarkable attorney. She knows exactly where I'm going with this. So once you get them riled up, then you know that they have that soft underbelly to go after. And so we started hammering on the fact that they have been completely political in their attempts to collude between big tech and government. And one of the key elements that we can hammer on is the Twitter files. We have got the emails from Dr. Fauci and Francis Collins, then director of NIH, saying that there needed to be a, quote, quick and devastating takedown of dissenting medical opinions. Interesting that Twitter executives then followed up 4 months later with that exact term, quick and devastating takedown of these dissenting opinions on Twitter when it came to COVID vaccine information. That is why we are so laser focused on this select subcommittee. The work cannot be more important. We've got to right the ship.
So the First Amendment obviously is a huge issue when it comes to the weaponization of government. We also saw the White House working with big tech to suppress and censor information that was counter to what their narrative was on the pandemic. But Attorney General Merrick Garland was on Capitol Hill yesterday in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he was asked a lot of questions about the double standard between the prosecutions of pro-life Americans, the ginned-up charges that they've used against them to raid their homes with dozens of armed FBI agents in front of their children, versus dozens of crisis pregnancy centers which have been firebombed repeatedly, and the Justice Department hasn't prosecuted a single person for that. And the Attorney General's excuse was, well, when these pro-life activists get arrested, it's during the daytime, and they are filmed, so it's easier for us to go after them. And when crisis pregnancy centers are attacked, it happens at night, so they're having a hard time figuring out who's doing that.
The FBI at that.
It is absurd, but it is reality, and the Department of Justice claims that there's no double standard. So on the pro-life issue, and on just the general issue of equal application of the law and equal justice, what is your committee doing to address that issue?
When you think about just what you said, and if anybody watched that, you'll notice that the Attorney General, he started speaking very slow. Because he was trying to run the clock out. Every single one of these senators and members of Congress, they have a small amount of time, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes. And so the people that they're questioning, they're trying to run the clock out. That's by design because they don't want to answer.
No,
and so the
they can't.
point that you make about the double standard,
they don't have an answer.
They'll send in a SWAT team when it is a conservative. When it is a woman who is in her 80s who is praying outside of a Planned Parenthood peacefully on the sidewalk, public territory, they'll send in a SWAT team for her. But when it comes to the firebombing and everything else, because it's done at night, has that ever been a defense that has worked? I'm sorry. Can you imagine going before a judge? I'm sorry, I threw a brick through the window, but it's okay because it was at night. What? It's laughable.
Well, and I would say it's because they agree with a lot of the behavior that's 100%. Been going on when it comes to the aftermath of the Dobbs decision.
And I think we also need to be careful to not refer to it as a double standard. It's a violation of the Constitution and the Equal Protection Clause. And And the reason that I say that is because when you say it's a double standard, then the other side always, that's just whataboutism. You're just whining. It's not a double standard, it's the foundation of our government. Governments fail when you have an unequal justice system. When you treat one segment of society one way and another segment of society a different way, eventually you lose your ability to work together and to have a cohesive government and to have a cohesive society. So it's incredibly important that we challenge that it isn't just, well, why are you going after this, and it's not fair and you treat Donald Trump differently. Any 3-year-old knows that you should treat everybody the same. That's why we have an equal protection clause in the 5th Amendment and the 14th Amendment. So we need to call these things out for really what they are. The Department of Justice is engaging in blatant politics in violation of the oath of office, again, that those people took.
Right.
And we need to name names.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Excellent point. So when it comes to Congress, the old saying is that you have the purse strings, you allocate money. We learned through a Washington Examiner report that the State Department, there we go. Can you hear me?
It's the Chinese.
It's
The Russians.
Twitter. That the State Department has been allocating hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer funding to foreign disinformation nonprofits to take down conservative media. So when it comes to the way that taxpayer money is being used to, as you mentioned, surrogacy to violate the First Amendment, how can Congress work to make sure that that's not happening?
Well, again, we do have to do it through the power of the purse. And one of the reasons that we're very angry about what happened with the omnibus spending bill, which 18 Republicans voted for and should be held accountable. But the omnibus spending bill in December, it basically limited what we can do in Congress in terms of some of these agencies and funded these agencies at the level to which they wanted and higher. So part of the reason that they're kind of flicking their hand at us is, hey, we've got our money. We don't necessarily need to come in and talk to you. But we absolutely have to use the power of the purse. Number one, there is absolutely no reason that they're using any federal funding whatsoever for any aspect of this. I keep coming back to the same thing, and I sound like a broken record. They are violating the First Amendment of the United States of America when they are using anything to limit our ability to speak and to hear. We have the right for both. And so it is using the power of the purse, but if they have the money to do that, if they have tens of millions or hundreds of millions, then our next budget is going to make sure that they don't have any of that.
That's right.
We're cutting it out. We're cutting it out.
All right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I have obligations today, so I'll be signing off.
Really how significant that is. For years, we have had a House of Representatives that never exercised their authority.
I will be doing daily streams.
This responsibility,
God bless you all.
This power to the executive, basically sending this message that somehow the White House can spend money better than the people's representatives. It's ludicrous. And that has really given birth to what I affectionately call the fourth branch of government, the regulatory regime. And they use that in a way, have weaponized it, to essentially control the American people through compliance. You look no further than what's happened with the Second Amendment and the ATF, which we need to abolish the ATF, by the way.
Yes, we do.
This most recent ruling, what they do, they continue to put out little things that just seem maybe not that harmless,